All right, so most of you know I've been reading this book, Tony Robbins, Money Master the Game. And one of the really great things about this book is no matter how you feel about Tony Robbins and that sort of stuff, he does have access to a lot of people who have a lot of money. So reading about those people might be beneficial. So at the end of the book, he has interviews with various people. So I want to go through those, give you some highlights that I saw from each of those chapters, all of those sub-chapters, I should say. So this is sub-chapter 6.1, and he interviews Carl Icahn. Carl Icahn, he talks about his background. He grew up on the streets of New York, etc., etc., etc. So if you don't know about Carl Icahn, you can read here. I'll give you a little background. But during the interview, basically, to sum it up, the one great takeaway I got from this interview is that Carl Icahn does not like the way business is being done in America. He doesn't like specifically the way shareholders cannot make the boards of companies or the CEOs accountable. So what he does, according to this interview and himself, he buys a lot of stock and then goes in and sometimes starts a proxy fight if necessary. So what he does is he evaluates the assets of a company, and he says, actually, let's see if I can find the direct quote. He says 90% of the time, 90% of the time, the assets in the company are good, but the management is bad. So that's what he tries to do, is he tries to go in, shake up the management. Oh, here it is. It says, fully 90% of the time, the reason is management. Oh, okay, here you go. Let's preface that. I started looking at these companies and really analyzing them. I tell you, it's sort of like arbitrage. But nobody appreciates that. That's something else. When you buy a company, what you're really buying are its assets. So you've got to look at those assets and ask yourself, well, why aren't they doing well as they should be? Fully 90% of the time, the reason is management. So we would find companies that weren't well run, and I had enough money that I could come in and say, I'm taking you over unless you change, or unless the board does X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times the board says, okay, but sometimes management would fight and perhaps go to court. So he talks about that, but he also kind of talks about why that is. He says, you can even remove a president if you wanted to, and they're only there for 4 years at a time. But at companies, it's very hard to get rid of a CEO, even if he or she is doing a terrible job. Often CEOs get that top job because they're like the guy in college who was the head of the fraternity. He wasn't the smartest guy, but he was the best social guy and a very likable guy, so he moved up through the ranks. So that's an interesting takeaway, I thought, from this interview. But he also talks about something he did where was it his son or his nephew picked up Netflix. I guess that happened pretty close to the time of this being originally published in 2014 and when he was interviewed. So he talks about Netflix, and he talks about buying it, selling some off. And the company, the CEO of the company, Reed Hastings, Netflix co-founder and CEO, was afraid that Carl was going to come in, Carl Icahn was going to come in and do his usual proxy fight thing. So I said, Reed, I'm not going to have a proxy fight with you. You just ended a 100-point move because his stock went up. He said, then I asked if he knew the Icahn rule. They said, what's that, Carl? I said, anybody who makes me $800 million in 3 months, I don't punch them in the mouth. So that's the Carl Icahn takeaway quote, I guess, from this interview. So there's other stuff in this interview that's good. It's worth reading. It's only about 5 pages long. And there's a couple tables in here to talk about the background of Carl Icahn. But that's what I took away from it. Carl Icahn won't punch you in the mouth if you make him money. And if you don't do what he wants you to do, he'll take over your company and you'll have a proxy fight. So that's what I got out of that one. We'll go through some more as we get along here. Thank you for your time. And of course, the book is Tony Robbins, Money, Master the Game. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.